Yeah, just well.
Nice.
Oh,
Thank
here
you.
we-
I'm a nurse, so thank you.
We are going to start our afternoon presentations in about 2 minutes.
Don't want to miss it.
This is that line, he's off. Hi guys, what's cracking, Hope Nation? It's Kevin Hines. I'll be live in about 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the timing of things. Oh, here we go. Let's get ready. I'll see you up there. Bye.
Again, a couple quick announcements before I introduce our first presenter for this afternoon. One is in regard to continuing education and CME. I want to remind everybody that the sooner you get on the portal and fill out the evaluation, the better, just so you don't forget, and we don't want to run into that problem of the portal closing before you have that opportunity to get credits. So that's number one. Secondly, you may not have been kind of to the back in the last 20 minutes or so, but Kevin Hines and his wife have set up a place where they're selling his book, if that's of interest to you. So I'm looking at AV here. Are we ready? Are we ready to go? So, quick introduction. Please welcome storyteller, author, and filmmaker Kevin Hines. And before we hear from Kevin, we're going to watch the trailer to his new film.
Are you okay? Is something wrong? Or can I help you? Those were the words that I desperately wanted to hear right before I catapulted myself over the rail. I have now lived 15 years past the day I should die. You see a lot that is being expressed. That's a clue that the culture is sick, not the person. Hey brother. Hello, Kevin. You were the first person to ever say, you know, Kevin, you should talk about this.
Our guest, Kevin Hines, plummeted 200 feet but survived.
Today I travel the globe spreading a message of hope. Why? Because we know it helps people heal.
There's a huge opportunity as we talk about stories of survival to support people who are out there who are in pain.
I break down on a regular basis. I have symptoms every day. I still have hallucinations, both auditory and visual.
Families of those who jumped from the iconic structure urged to stop the suicides.
One person goes to this bridge to die every 7 to 10 days. I think it's our obligation to stop them.
You go to Paris, go to New York, you go to Istanbul, there are suicide rates. The more people that know about the horror of that bridge, the more pressure will be put to do something to stop it.
Will this really decrease suicides, you think? They say things like, why ruin the aesthetics? What are the aesthetics of the bridge compared to one human life?
Kevin Hines, there's no telling how many lives were saved by you because you weren't able to protect your own.
Let's get to that place that nobody is being brave who talks about their brain disease. They're just being honest. My name is Kevin Hines, and this is my story. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's good to see all of you. Thank you for having me here today. I greatly appreciate it. Ben and I are so glad to be here in front of all of you. Before I begin to share with you my story, there's something we must do. Right here, right now and together. We must take a moment of silence for all of those that we have lost to death by suicide and lethal emotional pain. In my short 38 years on this beautiful planet, I've lost 8 people I love to this pain. Not the least of which was my biological mother, Marcia, may she rest in peace, and the most recent of which were 3 of the greatest brain health advocates this world has ever known, and 2 of them called me before they passed. But today, my new friends, is not about the way they died or the day they died. Today is about how they lived before they ever got sick in the first place. Today is about the beauty that they were and the light that exuded from within them when they were still here. And today we must choose to hold immeasurable gratitude for the very little time we had with them. I celebrate and honor those I love that I lost to suicide on their birthday with people that love them just as much as I do. Because the only way I believe to grieve a suicide properly is together, without blame and without guilt. It does not belong to us. They didn't die because of us or in spite of us. They died because of an unrelenting, lethal emotional pain that had nothing to do with us. So if you would, with me, join in me today, and if you are physically capable, let us stand in silence for all of those that we have lost to suicide. Thank you. Please be seated. You heard my words in the video. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Or can I help you? Were the only words I desperately needed to hear the day I found myself standing atop the Golden Gate Bridge walkway at 19 years of age, believing beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had not one other course of action but to die by these 2 hands from that lethal emotional pain, a term coined by my friend Dr. John Draper of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I absolutely believed I was useless. I felt I had no value. I thought my family hated me and wanted me gone, and perceived burdensomeness that follows with suicidal ideation. The belief that everyone around you hates you, wants nothing to do with you, and believes you have no internal value. And I found myself this place at 19, ready to die by my hands because of one thing: my brain. Your brain is the single most powerful organ you wield. It is mostly on automatic mode. It controls every action and inaction you take, every decision and indecision. For lack of a better term, if your brain is malfunctioning, there goes the rest of you. But if I'm going to do this story any justice, we have to stop right here. We can't start at the bridge. We have to stop right here and go all the way back to the day I was born. August 30th, 1981, in the great city of San Francisco, in the beautiful state of California. I was born to biological parents, Marcia Silvetta and Martino Perales. He was half Mexican, half Italian, arguably the best parts of me. And Marcia hailed from James Bond Island, Jamaica, and St. Island is many things. You can think of me as everything but Russian. Let's go with that. My biological mom and dad had nothing and no one. They had no feasible legal income. They had to hustle to survive. I was born in squalor. The first 9 months of my life were spent in places with concrete slab floors, barely a box spring for a mattress. The kind of place you paid for by the hour, and if you didn't, you were out. And my mom and dad did whatever they had to do, however illegal, to pay on that hour by that hour. Meaning that they left their 2 infant boys unattended to go do score and sell drugs. That's where my life began, humble beginnings. My birth mom and dad loved us unconditionally. They wanted to protect us. but they didn't know how, they had no help. They had also been diagnosed in their day, both of them separately, with manic depression, what we today call bipolar disorder. The very same diagnosis I would be given at 17 and a half years of age, 2 years prior to jumping off of that bridge. My birth mom and dad coped with their disorder with hardcore drugs and alcohol. And one fateful day, one seedy motel clerk made his most unseedy decision. As me and my brother lie there next to dangerous drug paraphernalia, sharp metal objects, things if we had touched could have killed us. One fateful day, that seedy motel clerk, who doesn't call the police for all the shady things he's doing, makes a decision. He hears our screams and our cries in his mind one too many times and calls the San Francisco Police Department. And they come in with Child Protective Services and they soup us up smelling sour and putrid. And the court documents read of that day, and I quote, "The children lie there, in their own filth, screaming and crying not to be neglected, barely clothed, not even a diaper." That's where my life began. And they swooped us up and they placed us in protective custody and into the system. Who knows what system I speak of? Foster care, yes. And they placed us in the foster care system, a system at the time that was in shambles in San Francisco in the 1980s, a system that allowed kids to age out into homelessness onto the streets without a penny in their pockets, allowing other kids to be abused and neglected by the very foster parents set to protect them. A system for all the good it's done in this world still allows for both of those things to occur today. And my brother and I were supposed to be adopted together. That was the idea. By the way, my name wasn't always Kevin Hines. That's my adopted name. My biological name is Giovanni Gabriel Prasad Penales. Say that 10 times fast. All right? And somehow my brother's name was just Jordash. What the hell? Where's his other 3 names, Mom and Dad? This makes no logical sense at all. It's so inconsistent. Nonetheless, my brother, they say, looked exactly like me down to the freckles, except for the fact that he had blonde, curly hair. Can you see it? They said he had blonde. I had long, wavy auburn hair before I started to use this haircut. And my brother and I, we were supposed to be adopted together. Do you think that's what happened? No, not by a long shot, not given that foster care system. No, we bounced around from home to home. We got a vicious strain of bronchitis, and my only full-blooded brother died. And people have said to me quite callously as an adult, "Kevin, why does that matter? You were an infant. How did that affect you?" You all know the first 3 to 9 months of an infant's life are the most crucial for their ability to connect, adapt, attach, and be well in any future. And in the first 3 to 9 months of an infant's life are filled with nothing but consistent trauma. At some point, something's got to give, and you're going to have a heck of a hard time. That hard time came for me at 17 and a half years of age on a stage a little larger than this. I was at Archbishop Bearden High School in their newly refurbished theater. I was performing in a show called How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Any theater kids in the building? All I need is one. Just theater here. Goodness. What do you do with all of your time? I guess this happens. And I'm on this stage performing in this show, playing this character called Gatch. And if you know Gatch was a philandering businessman. He was the guy that had the wife at home but was messing around with all the secretaries in the office, and it was a kissing scene with one of the secretaries. That was the opening scene for me, and I was a lead in the play. I'm on that stage. I'm wearing one of my father, Patrick Hines' old suits and ties, which is no small feat. Patrick Hines is 6'1". I know you can't tell I'm on a stage. I'm not 6'1". You had no idea because I'm a very tall 5'7". Why are you laughing? It's a real thing. I'm 5'7" and a quarter. I'm a very tall person. I'm on that stage and I'm looking out into this crowd of 1,200 people. Not one seat was open, as per usual for a John Fennell play. John Fennell was the theater director. He was a failed actor, a high school thespian director. He was the greatest teacher, though, any of us kids would ever have. He taught thousands of kids across the Bay Area in his time. And I'm on that stage looking out into this 1,200 person crowd, and I begin to believe in a fit of extreme paranoid delusion that every single one of the audience members was at any moment going to simultaneously stand up, rush the stage, and end my life. I believed they were coming to kill me. It was the first severe symptom I would have.
Now, I had been acting erratically prior to this. I had been certainly unwell. My family was absolutely worried about me, but they didn't know why. I didn't know what was wrong with me. But we also have to stop here and go back. Now we have to go back to 4th grade. The first time I ever heard voices not that of my conscience, auditory hallucinations, was in 4th grade. Do you think I told anybody? No, I buried it, and I was quiet about it because I was afraid. How does a 4th grade child tell mom and dad he hears voices he doesn't understand as what he knows in his head as his conscience? Voices that were murmurs in my head in 4th grade that I didn't quite understand or comprehend what they were saying. I just knew they hated me, and I kept it quiet. Those voices would return in full force at 17 and a half years of age. But let me tell you what perpetuated those voices in 4th grade. I was tormented in grade school by the other kids. Tormented every day because of the color of my skin. It was an all-white school, and I am not all white. And they made me viscerally aware of that every day. The 8th graders to a 4th grader would hold my head down and say, swing, little N-word, swing. They would pull my ears from behind me as hard as they could and say, whistle, little N-word, whistle. Or they simply wouldn't say anything at all. They would pick me up, turn me upside down, and place me in a garbage can face first and tell me that's what I was. It was awful. It concretely set a piece in my heart of self-apathy, of true belief that I was without value. It made me feel like I was so little and so tiny and so insignificant. And it played a role. It played a really big role in me leaping off of that bridge later on, in my chemical depression that was to follow. But back to the story at hand. From 17 to 19 years of age, when the voices came back full force at 17, they were auditory hallucinations. Now I knew what they were saying. They told me every day that I had to die. They told me that it was inevitable. They told me I had no choice. I never once wanted to jump off that bridge, my friends. I believed I had to. Two categorically different things. From 17 to 19, it was a very rocky road. I would skyrocket into a manic, euphoric, natural high caused by bipolar disorder. And once you go up, you must come. And I come crashing down on a weekly basis into this dark abyss of pain and depression. This black cloud over my head, rain, hail, sleet, and snow, and I thought I was the only one. Little did I know that 27.5 million other Americans shared the diagnosis I did. But I felt alone, surrounded by a sea of people, most of whom who loved me. I thought I had to die. I thought I was useless. And I found my way onto a bus at 19 years of age after haphazardly following a treatment plan for 2 years. Do you think a 17 and 18 and 19-year-old kid wanted to adequately follow a treatment plan from a doctor? No, I wanted to be the kid that had just come off the WCAL wrestling championship. The kid whose football team would go to state. I wanted to be the kid who was on the speech and debate team, albeit for 2 days before they kicked me off, but I was there. I was there. I wanted to be that kid, but he was falling apart at the seams. And at 19, I boarded that bus, hearing the voices in my head telling me I had to die by my hands. I sat in the very back row, in the middle seat, looking out upon everyone. And I began to cry. Softly, moderately, and then waterfalls flowing down my eyes and mucus dripping from my nose. One of those real cries, like when you're 2 and your mom's pissed at you, you know? And I'm crying like a baby on a bus crowded filled with 100 people. And that's when I begin to yell aloud at the voices I'm hearing in my head. Leave me alone, but I don't want to die. I'm a good person. Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you? And now if they weren't before, 100 people are looking down the barrel of the bus at me but saying absolutely nothing, except for this man right here to my left. The man to my left says to the fellow next to him, while pointing at me with his thumb, with a smile on his face, "What the hell's wrong with that kid?" And that, my newfound friends, is what's wrong with some of us in society today, not you in this room, you're doing the work to help people like me, but some of society feels nothing for people like me but apathy toward me and fear of me. They push me away, they alienate me, and people like me. They say, what's wrong with that guy? As opposed to, what can I do for you? How can I help you? What do you need? How do I meet you where you're at? I sat on that bus crying like a child. The bus got to the Golden Gate Bridge parking lot and everybody deboarded. 100 people on that bus got off with their fanny packs from 1985 to the year 2000. Multi-zippered and lots of colors. And their foreign accents from all over the world, and their cameras your kids wouldn't understand because they weren't yet phones. And they got off that bus and they walked on to the Golden Gate Bridge walkway to see what was called then the ninth wonder of the world, one of the most beautiful man-made structures ever created, apparently, according to some San Franciscan somewhere. And I sat there on that bus, terrified of myself and the voices in my head, and hoping, wishing, and praying that one person would see me, see my pain, and say something kind. Hey, kid, are you okay? Brother, is something wrong? Or pal, can I help you? And I would have told them everything and begged them to save me. I was ambivalent on that bus. It was something I was lacking the morning of when my father asked me to come be with him that day. But on that bus, all I wanted to do was live, while my brain was trying to kill me. The bus got to the Golden Gate Bridge parking lot and everybody deboarded but me. I walked up to the bus driver who said to me, come on, kid, get off the bus, I gotta go. I looked him directly in his eyes, pleading inside my mind that he would see within the pain. And he said like this with his hands to motion me to get off the bus. I walked down those 2 steps that felt like 2,000. I walked across the Golden Gate Bridge walkway for 40 minutes crying like a child. Bikers, joggers, tourists, runners, police officers searching for suicidal people went by me twice. Those officers sadly had not been trained back then in prevention. They are today. Thankfully today they save between 50 and 120 lives a year, and that's a beautiful thing. But back then they had no knowledge of how to help someone like me that was practical, and they went by me. I stood at a particular light rail, leaning my tears and falling them to the waters below, and that is when it happened. A woman from my left approached me. She had blonde curly hair and those sunglasses you ladies love to wear in the heat that do not fit your face. You look like giant human bugs. Something to consider. I know Jackie O started it, but even she too. Anyway, and that's when she approached with a smile on her face, and I thought, this is it. This lady is going to save me. I don't have to die today. I left my life in her hands, her incapable hands. It wasn't her fault what happened next, not by a long shot. She had no training in suicide prevention. Most of us do not, sadly. And she walked up to me and then pulled out a digital camera and said, will you take my picture? I actually had to laugh inside, like, lady, this is terrible timing. I'll take your camera. And she posed 5 times right in front of me. 5 times, real poses, like some kind of model. And I'm thinking, like, what is happening right now? And she took her camera when she was done and she walked away. But not 20 yards off the bridge. She walked back across the entire 2-mile stretch of walkway, which is what people did at the ninth wonder of the world, the Golden Gate Bridge, in awe of its beauty, which is completely understandable. Now, someone has made me aware that maybe I saw things the wrong way. Maybe I missed the point of her interaction. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine that said this said, Kevin, she was quite literally the only human being that day to interact with you positively after that bus. She was trying to show you something beautiful. You missed it. I have to be inclined to agree. Hindsight is 20/20. Now, when she walked away, I immediately thought inside, absolutely,
nobody cares. Was that true? Everybody cared. Every member of my family, every one of my friends, my acquaintances would have been there to rip me from that rail to safety because of how much they cared. Would you have been there? Would you have been there? Yes. Yes, of course you would, because you care. It's what you do. I could not see the forest through the trees. I wish I knew back then on that bridge what I know today, that my thoughts do not have to become my actions. Think about that saying for a minute. My thoughts do not have to become my actions. Matter of fact, say it with me loud and proud. After I say it, repeat after me. My thoughts do not have to become my actions. If all of your thoughts became your actions, how many of you would be in jail for road rage right now? Oh, show me the truth, people. Show me the truth. Show me the truth. There we go. If we can recognize in the face of suicidal crisis that our thoughts do not have to own, rule, or define our next action, through self-awareness techniques, we can always remain right here. We can be here tomorrow and every single day after that, no matter the pain we're in. I recognize that today, living with chronic thoughts of ending my life. But they'll never kill me. I will never die by my hands, no matter how often I think about it, because each and every time I become suicidal today, and I do often, I turn to the people in front of me, to the left or to the right of me, and I will say 4 simple but effective words each and every time. I need help now. And if I say I need help now to you, what will you do?
Help.
Exactly. And see, that's the thing people don't recognize. Inside suicidal crisis, you perceive burdensomeness. You think that everyone hates you. You think you deserve to die. You believe you have no option, when in fact you have many. When in fact there are so many variable truths and paths you can take toward living. I couldn't see that back then. I believed that my thoughts owned, ruled, and defined what I did next. And when that lady walked away and I said, absolutely nobody cares, the voice in my head screamed, jump now, and I did. I catapulted myself into free fall off the Golden Gate Bridge, a way that is 99% fatal. 99% of those who've attempted off that bridge never, ever get to tell their stories. The millisecond my hands left that rail, all I wanted to do was reach back, but it was too late. Instantaneous regret for my actions and the 100% recognition that I just made the greatest mistake of my life, and it was too late. As I fell 220 feet, 25 stories at 75 miles an hour in 4 seconds, these were the words that rang true in my mind. What have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. And I hit that water like a ton of bricks. I hit that water from that height at that speed, and when you hit that water from that height at that speed, it's like hitting a solid brick wall. You stop for less than a second. The impact reverberated through my bent legs into my lower back and shattered my T12, L1, L2 lower vertebrae into shards. I missed that day severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. I opened my eyes in that water and I was drowning 70 feet beneath it. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to drown. And then thinking to myself, well, why did you jump into a giant body of water? And if you realize that moment, that clarity, it was an irrational and illogical thought process that led me to attempt in the first place, not a rational and logical one, which is always what leads to suicide. I swam to the surface, not feeling the use of my legs, just using my arms as fast as they would take me, 70 feet in one breath, praying the entire time that I would live. As I got closer and closer to the lit circle of water above me, I thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to die today. And I remember thinking to myself, no, Kevin, you can't die today. If you die here today, Kevin, no one will ever know you didn't want to. No one will ever know you knew you made a mistake. I broke the surface, I bobbed up and down in the water, and I did the one thing I've had control over since kindergarten. I prayed. God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake on repeat. And I believe he heard me. A woman driving by in a red car
saw me go over that rail at the moment of my attempt, and on her car phone in the year 2000, yes, car phone, in the year 2000, she called her friend in the United States Coast Guard. The singular reason the Coast Guard boat arrived to my body in position in the water before I would set in hypothermia and drown within a 3-minute window was because that woman made that phone call in the timely manner in which she did. In the water, as I flailed to stay afloat and kept praying, God, please save me, I don't want to die, I made a mistake, something began to circle beneath me. Something large and very slimy, very, very alive. And I remember thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't die jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and a shark is going to devour me. Now I'm just freaking out. I started to punch this thing, but it wouldn't go away. It just kept circling faster and faster and faster. And no longer was I wading in the water to stay afloat. No longer was I struggling to get to the surface. I'm lying atop the water on my back, being kept buoyant by this creature, thinking to myself, this is one hell of a nice shark. It turns out it was no shark at all. I would be on a television program called Prime Time with John Quinones, that guy that does that show, What Would You Do? I'm on that show with John Quinones, and I said on the show I thought that there was a shark beneath me in the water. People wrote into the show from all over the world. One man's letter stuck out of all the rest. His name was Morgan McWard. He was from Las Vegas, Nevada, and he was on the bridge that day with his mother, and this is what he wrote in to ABC News to me. By the way, ABC News sent me a manila envelope with paper emails. The year 2000? It's good as you sent the emails. I'm just saying. Somebody missed that there. Focus. And I'm reading through these emails, and this is what Morgan's email says to me. Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. Until this day, watching this show, no one would tell me whether you lived or died. It's haunted me until right now. By the way, Kevin, there was no shark, like you mentioned, on the show. But there absolutely was a sea lion. And the people above looking down needed to be keeping your body afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind you. Now, my new friends, you call that what you want, but that is my miracle, and I will always believe. Thank you. The Coast Guard boat arrived behind me. The creature took off from underneath me. And isn't it interesting that no human being helped me that day, but a mammal did? That fascinates me. But the Coast Guard boat pulls up, they fish me onto a flatboard, they put me into a neck brace, and they start asking questions. Kid, do you know what you just did? Yeah. And then they said, why? I had no real answer. I don't know, I said. I thought I had to die today. The senior officer leans in and says, son, do you understand how many people we pull out of these waters that are already gone? I said, no, sir, and I don't want to know. He said, I'm going to tell you anyway. He said, young man, this unit alone has pulled out 57 dead bodies from these waters. And 1 live one. I think they call that perspective, yes? Yes. That's right. And so they get me to the ambulance. The ambulance gets me to the hospital, and the third piece of the miracle occurs. One of the foremost back surgeons on the West Coast was leaving for the day as I was entering. He did me a huge solid and decided to stay. He performed a back surgery on me through my left side. That is the first and only of its particular kind. He invented it for me. He went in through my left side. I have a 23 staple scar that I'm constantly reminded of when I look in the mirror. Also, no amount of McDermott is going to make it go away. And I vividly remember those 23 staples because when they pulled out the first staple, I said, stop, that hurts. I said, give me the staple remover thingy. They said, that's not what it's called. I said, give me the thingy. And I popped out 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 14, 18, 23 myself. I needed to do it with my own bare hand. Why? To know what never, ever, ever to do anything like again. I needed to feel it. And they allowed me to. In that hospital, I would go from a wheelchair to a walker and a back brace to a back brace and a cane, and then right to my first psych ward, because you can't just go home after that. 8 psych ward stays after that, the last of which occurred only about 30 weeks ago. I am in recovery from this diagnosis every day. I live with every symptom I've ever had. Paranoia, paranoid delusions, depression, mania, hallucinations, auditory and visual, panic attacks, etc. I just know how to cope with them today. I know how to manage them one day at a time, and I focus on the positive every day. My mother, Debbie Hines, and my father, Patrick Hines, may be divorced, but they instilled 2 things in me that I can never forget. Patrick instilled in me one thing that was very clear every single day of his life. Kevin, hard work, because nothing good ever came without it. I never took that seriously until I got older and I realized that if I didn't work tirelessly for my better brain health, I would be dead or in a psych ward for the rest of my life. My mother instilled in me something else. She taught me to be kind, compassionate, loving, caring, empathetic, and non-judgmental to every single person I come into contact with, no matter their behavior toward me. And she taught me that starting in 4th grade. Remember that time I talked about 4th grade? Yeah. That's a tall order for a kid. It's a tall order for me today. I don't always meet the mark, but I try my best to hear my mom's words in my head. Because no one behaves aggressively, violently, or angrily, or hatefully against someone else unless they're taught that by someone before them. We're not born haters. We're not born to hurt people. We hurt people because of who's hurt us first and why and how. And recognizing that allows you to be empathetic to everyone, not just some people. And help us understand that everyone has value, even the most scary of people we might think of. On that day, on that bridge, in that belief that I had to die, I found a truth in my survival. That every waking moment is a gift. And that I am a gift to everyone in front of me. And that everyone in front of me is a gift to me. And that no matter the pain I would face, I deserve this life until my natural end. I want you to consider for a moment all the children that never make it past the womb. This might be hard for some of us. My wife and I, Margaret, know that pain all too well. Jack Ryan would have been 8 this year. But he wasn't intended to be here in physical form. You all are. For the simple fact that I get to look in your beautiful eyes from this stage, I know you're supposed to be here until your natural end, never to die by your hands. I also know something else, that given the number of people in this room, at least 3 of you are contemplating suicide right now. I'm begging you, pleading with you, hoping with you, that that is not the path you take. That you find the strength within to find someone to look up to and to say those 4 simple but effective words. I need help. That's right. Because you are valued. You are worthy and you do matter, and suicide never has to be the solution to your problem. It is the problem. You're beautiful just as you are. You're perfect just as you are. You're each 1,000 times greater than the worst thing you've ever done. And if nobody else says it today, I love you and I want you to stay. The recovery has been long and arduous. It continues today, but I am glad and grateful even inside the pain. I live in 3 kinds of pain today. No pity needed, these are the facts. I have a pain from my back injury. It's chronic, it's excruciating. I don't take pain meds because that's partly how my birth parents died and I want nothing to do with it. I live in a pain from my skin disease that I developed 2 years ago. 2nd-degree burns on my body from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, lesions everywhere from a medical burn. The medications I've been taking for the better part of 20 years poisoned my insides. I was on the tipping point of what's called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. If you get Stevens-Johnson syndrome, you have a 1% chance of survival. I was already 1% chance of surviving that bridge, and I did. I wasn't going to do it again. After fighting with all kinds of treatment that didn't work, I found a way to heal my skin. It was in a very dangerous position. They had to take me off of my psych meds within 24 hours. All of them that I've been taking for 20 years, within 24 hours. I had a 73-hour hallucinatory withdrawal-based psychosis. My wife coached me through the entire thing. I saw things, I saw the answers to the universe, man, like it was wild. No, Jesus spoke to me, the King of Bhutan, Buddha, and Gandhi. It was really wild. I'm just saying. We could have a whole speech about that. Just those 73 hours. And these burns, if you understand the pain I might have been in, or if you don't, these burns felt like knives and needles were coming from my bones throughout my skin across my entire body for 30 weeks straight, 24 hours a day. Now, I never wanted to die off the Golden Gate Bridge. I just believed I had to. But when these burns were on my body and the pain was so great, I would cry from morning until night. I wanted to die. I wanted to end my life. I wanted to buckle. I wanted to fold. I wanted to give in. Did I buckle?
No.
Did I fold?
No.
Did I give in?
No.
No, I learned how to fight the pain, in spite of the pain, to thrive today. Because this life is the greatest gift I've ever been given or will ever be given. And even though that pain was immeasurable, I found a way through it because of one thing. My biological grandmother's name, hope. I found light at the end of every darkened tunnel. I recognized my true value and I forged onward. I believe that some of us that we don't have to always succumb to the pain. Pain, my new friends, is inevitable. It's going to happen to all of us, some of us on a regular basis, some of us all day, every day. But suffering, I have learned, is optional. And even though I was born in squalor in a crack motel, I have never suffered a day in my life. I've been given a second chance at it. And I'm not going to squander that. I'm going to fight the pain to the day I die of natural causes at 112, holding my wife's hand, like in the film The Notebook. I never saw it twice or cried during it. Ladies and gentlemen and friends, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That is why we call it the present. And if y'all don't believe me, Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda said that. And talking turtles always know what's up. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is our gift. Let us always and forever cherish this day and every waking moment of this gorgeous gift we all get to call life. From the bottom of my heart, from the depths of my soul, thank you for listening. I appreciate you sincerely, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that reception. I want to bring to the stage a man who really needs no introduction, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. His name is Ben Nemtin, and his 3 childhood friends started the Buried Life in Victoria, BC in 2006. They made a list of 100 things to do before they died. And for every list item they accomplished, they helped a complete stranger cross something off their bucket list. Since then, they have crossed off write a #1 New York Times best-selling book, make a TV show on MTV, be interviewed by Oprah, and have helped reunite a father and son after 17 years and surprised a young girl with a much-needed bionic arm. Ben and his friends have crossed off 91 of 100 dreams, and they are currently filming the Buried Life documentary film. Ladies and gentlemen, please give the warmest of welcomes to the great Ben Nemtin.
Thank you. Another round of applause for the incredible Kevin Hines. Thank you for your strength and your inspiration. I'm just so honored to be able to speak with Kevin and share